Stop that. Stop that. Stop that. I hear him chat to the noise. Move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him chat with the walking. Just too sharp with the prize. White girls let it tell me I'm awesome, yeah. Hot like fire on the pan. If you wanna touch my please use caution. Cold like 0 degrees. I'm out the cage, gotta let out the beast. Revolutionary, gotta let out the streets. Locked in a cage, I'ma let out the sheets. We came for one man, forget my peace. We take the west side, take on the east. I'ma put him in the cage, never let out the. Yeah, I hear him chat to the noise. Move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him chat with the boys. Man so tough, but mans keep walking, yeah. Just too sharp with the prize. White girls, let it tell me I'm awesome, yeah. Hot like fire on the pan. If you wanna touch me, please use caution. Stop that. Stop that. Stop that.
Damn, I miss Thursday Night Football when both teams have a week's worth of rest. That's what happens occasionally on Thursday Night Football. And an otherwise really boring game, we did get a national talking point out of the game, and we have an interesting cast of characters to walk you through that. Dan's a little late, so pinch hitting for him is Dan. Andrew Hawkins, a former NFL player, former player rep, and a former team president, and David Sampson. These ingredients have never been together before, and we get to talk about a player quitting on his team. Let's go.
Did you say Dan is pinch hitting for Dan?
I'm sorry, Stugotz is pinch hitting for Dan. Yeah,
working the lineup.
Yeah, sorry, late
It's
scratch. Okay. So Stugotz, you're not a former player, you're not a former team president, but you are a hot take artist that found out about this story 5 minutes ago. So I am going to be very curious of your take. However, for the audience that doesn't know, Devondre Campbell, a backup, occasional starter linebacker for the San Francisco 49ers, was called upon to enter the game, refused to enter the game, and we have sound from all the key players involved. First, let me walk you through this. Kyle Shanahan was asked about what happened after the game. Here's the sound.
What happened with Devondre Campbell? He didn't play and he went into the locker room at some point?
Yeah, said he didn't want to play today.
Play today?
Yep.
The coaching staff?
He did when I asked him why he didn't want to go in. So.
During the game or before?
No, that was in the third quarter.
Hawk, you were on the Cleveland Browns with Kyle Shanahan, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I was there.
How do you think this flies with Coach Kyle?
Oh, he's pissed. He's pissed. He is.
His team had just lost, too.
I mean, they took an L. Look, I'd be lying if I said I never thought about leaving mid-game.
Really?
I mean, we had some bad losses in my day.
Huh.
You know? And
Wait,
it gets
when
mentally.
you say quit, you mean quit your career? Quit?
Yeah, like maybe this is the minute. Maybe this is the minute I'm done. Right here.
Like
you
with 8
never
minutes
do
left
it,
in the
but
third?
you can fantasize about it. You've never fantasized about quitting a job. Come on, nobody in here
All the time.
fantasize about quitting their job in the middle of a workday.
No,
Are you joking?
I mean, during the show, after the show, at night.
You know what I'm
morning,
so?
yeah.
It's I know it's like, man, I can't believe you've done that. We've all had this fantasy before of just being like, you know what? To hell with this, bro. I'm going home. You know what I'm saying? Do you always act on it? No.
Right.
How about ever? Did you ever act on it?
I've never acted on it.
No.
No, I
forget
have
always.
never acted.
Were these fleeting thoughts or legitimate things that you were contemplating on the sideline before they called you in?
Wait,
on
Hawk,
the drive?
Mike, I imagine he's down 31-7 in the third quarter, and he's like, what am I doing out
the
here?
winless
What are we
Browns.
doing?
This sport hurts, man.
It's more dangerous to go in than for me to walk off the field. Look, I have told a coach I'm not going in before.
Was it against the Steelers?
It was not against the Steelers.
Well,
I
it's
wish
just
it
because
would have been against the Steelers.
Those teams
the
would beat
Ravens.
you up physically. I
Yeah.
imagine when you're 0-16 and
I'd
you're
be in
also
a
getting
lot better situation health-wise right now.
Wait, so you told the coach?
Yeah, I told the coach I would not do that.
Really?
Now, I don't know what the situation is with Campbell, right? And I know it looks terrible. And it is terrible. If I was his teammate, I would also be pissed.
Right.
Like, you think we wanted to go in, bro?
Well, wait. The situation, just to be clear, is that he had started 12 of the first 13 games.
Uh-huh.
He was second on the team in tackles.
Okay.
But then Greenlaw, who he had replaced because he had an Achilles injury, Greenlaw got healthy. He gets his starting job back.
Yep.
And then Campbell's back on the bench. But then Greenlaw said, oh, I got a little thing. I got a
okay.
thing. And then the coach said, all right, we're going back to you. And Campbell said, you didn't want me an hour ago. Forget it. And he
You don't
literally
understand
walked
that?
off.
Are we really going to act like we don't understand that a little bit? A little bit of that logic.
I'd release him on the spot. I would have gone to the locker room and released him on the spot. I don't care if he's on waivers and goes to a playoff team. I don't want him in that uniform again. It's a disgrace.
But David, wait a second. Let's hear Hawk out because he's trying. There's a human element. There's
a human element.
Yes, the guy's upset.
I'm not saying he's right. I'm just saying let's take a moment to try to understand this situation.
Nope.
All right, you have a girl.
No moments.
You know, a guy did your girl wrong, right? In her previous relationship, and you come in and save the day, and you've been oh my gosh, you've been the best boyfriend that anybody could ask for. I know where this is going. Right?
Yep.
All of a sudden, ex-boyfriend comes back around and said, I've been working on myself. I went to therapy. You know, I'm a different person now. And she says, you know what? He was my first love. I'm going to give him a chance.
It's wrong.
Within the first week, he's back to his old tricks. And she comes crawling back to you, David. And she says, you know what? I need you. I'm going through a tough time. Things didn't go the way we planned. And you know what? I realize now you're the one I want. You're going back in that game?
If I'm extra lonely,
oh my god,
and I'm on a cold streak, you can.
That sounds like a you problem, David.
Is this girl paying me $10.7 million for the year or no?
That's a good point.
It's a lot of money.
Right.
It's a good question.
Yes.
I don't know. It depends on.
She's not.
It's a lot of money, and to David Sampson's point of, I'll cut him on the spot. That is a lot of money.
But
terminated for cause.
But Guy A is
Joe Girardi
unreliable.
over here.
Guy A is the guy that she wants, but he's unreliable, and Guy B is tired of being there when Guy A becomes unreliable again.
I hate to be your backup plan.
Well, Hawk mentioned how this might go over in the locker room with the teammates. Let's hear from his teammates. First, Travarius Ward had something to say that we will hear in moments.
All right.
I mean, he's a professional. He's been playing for a long time. I mean, if he didn't want to play, he shouldn't have dressed out. You know, he could have told him that before the game. So I feel like there was some subtle that he did. Definitely hurt the team because, you know, D went down. And we needed a linebacker, you know. And I think Flan was banged up, too. So for him to do that, that's some subtle stuff to me, in my opinion. Like, it's probably going to get cut soon. So, you know, it is what it is with that.
And the thing about Travarius Ward is he had a daughter that passed away at 1 year old, played a couple weeks later. So you're looking at a guy who has gone through some of the worst things imaginable and then yet went out and did his job and was there with his teammates day in and day out. So he's looking and being like, bro, what are we doing?
He's also playing a position in which Fred Warner is excelling at his position with a fractured ankle. Has played several games in a row with that fractured ankle. Your take on what Ward had to say before we get to another team leader in George Kittle.
I didn't really hear anything about it because I got in the locker room, so it's all brand new information to me. Look, if you're on the roster, you're expected, and you suit up, you're expected to play. I think if anyone in this building got asked to go in, I would say 100% of everybody would die to get on that football field. And so, you know, people are going through random things off the field. I can't speak on that. You know, whatever his decision was, it wasn't for this organization, it wasn't for this team, and no, that's on him. So, not very happy about it. I would have something to say. I wish I would have heard about it on the field, but I didn't. Now, is that the reason we lost? Absolutely not. But you don't really. It's hard to win football games when someone doesn't want to play football.
So now, Hawk, you have, you know, the Niners, you have one of their best players, George Kittle. You have one of the best tight ends, one of the leaders of that team calling that guy out. Like, and how do you feel about that? Because that's what would happen to you if you had quit one of those games.
Yeah, I wouldn't have cared. But look, here's the thing. I completely agree with everything every player has said. I completely agree with what you guys are saying. I think this is one of those moments in sports and football where everybody is going to be on one side because it's clearly the right side. To his point, it's hard to win football games when guys don't want to play football. Devil's advocate.
Yes.
He's actually doing the 49ers a favor.
Really?
Because this is the conversation versus how terrible they've been playing. So they should be thanking him for giving them this out.
I love it.
At the end of a game because that was a horrible football game.
Why is that a bad take? Because he's right. We're not talking about Kyle Shanahan today. We're not talking about Brock Purdy and how bad he was yesterday.
I bought the over-under to 17. So I have no idea why anyone's upset at all. I did a Stugotz. The 12-6 game was a barn burner. Loved every minute of having 6 field goals.
So does this deflect from a loss that pretty much ends San Francisco's season, or does it compound some of the larger issues? Because if you're a Niners fan and you're watching that game, you're wondering about the blueprint, and then you have a productive player quitting on you, a player that you're paying a lot of money to quitting on you too. It does kind of feel like, is this the end for this? Not necessarily regime, because Kyle's in high demand, but their window certainly feels like it might have closed and slammed shut.
It already did. Wow.
Yeah, I told you that 5 weeks ago that
you did.
49ers window was closed on Tony's top 5. I saw it from the beginning.
And that was even before the McCaffrey injury.
I wrote it down. Yeah.
I do think it's a microcosm of like what's going on in the 49ers. I think they have aging superstars, and you just can't run that kind of positionless offense and style when guys are hurt and routinely injured and not playing well. I mean, Debo's asking for the ball, and then he's dropping what seems to be a touchdown pass at moments. Like, this is a microcosm of what the state of the 49ers is. And, again, I know we're all joking here, but that is bullshit. To quit a game, like, there is an accountability that happens with the football team. You hear it in Kittle's voice, and you expect the guy next to you to be as locked in as you are. We're going to do everything we can to get a win. We're going to come in here, and under any circumstance, even if it's the littlest contribution, we're going to do whatever is needed. And clearly that wasn't the case. Now, again, he might be going through something mentally. We've seen moments where guys have left mid-game. You know, this is probably closer to the AB situation than the rest in peace Vontae Davis situation, because it just felt like mentally Vontae Davis just wasn't in that moment, end of his career. You know, it was like, this is too much. I've moved cities this many times. Where AB's was very similar to this. He wanted the football. They weren't giving it to him. They told him to go in. At the end, he was like, no, you didn't give me the ball. I'm not going in. This feels more like that. And you don't expect it from a 31-year-old linebacker who's been in this league a long time.
And thankfully kept his shirt on.
Yeah.
So I view that as a positive.
No, I wouldn't say that, because then we didn't know. We didn't find out till after. I wish he would have. So we made it a little more interesting.
It was so disgusting. We all would have quit. I would have quit just to be outside of the weather, inside
in the rain.
Of the weather.
Yes,
it was disgusting.
right. Yes.
I mean, please, you guys all would have walked. You would have stayed out there.
Arthritis.
I've had insight from previous union reps before, Hawk, but I haven't really had the opportunity to talk to you about these short week Thursday night football games, because it's always a national talking point anytime you have a really bad game. And last night was a really bad game. Watch out for the Rams, though. Sneaky.
Yeah.
I mean, they just have the Jets, Cards,
keep an eye
Seahawks.
on them. You're right.
They can be hosting a playoff.
I'm with you.
They are sneaky.
Yeah. But were you in? I imagine you were representing your team when it came to these discussions on the short week Thursday night football games. That was slop. Now, there's slop occasionally on Sundays. Lord knows the AFC South was putting up about a decade's worth of divisional slop. But, I mean, you can't ignore it. They're paying a lot of money. This is a feature game. It does have some stakes attached to it, and it was just garbage.
Yeah, it was garbage. And, I mean, there's garbage games on Sundays as well. Now, look, my take when I was in the league on Thursday Night Football, I hated them. I mean, they were the bane of my existence. The two things I hated most in the NFL were Thursday Night Football games and joint training camp practices. Because joint training camp practices are a sneaky way for teams to add like 3 preseason games. Because you go harder in those joint practices than you do in the games, because you're there and you're like, okay, I'm practicing against the Bills. I might be a free agent next year or this year. So you're like literally competing for 2 coaching staffs to show what you have on like this is my chance. And guys go way too hard. And then you play that team
because they're looking for a job.
Oh, I hate it. I think it is again, the sneakiest way to add 4 preseason football games.
What about the day after the Thursday game? It may have been a bad game, but now they get 10 days off.
Yeah, I mean, that's
about the glass half full. We're sitting here being
I didn't mind
negative.
That's the part I didn't mind. But it is hard to get up for a Thursday. Now, here's the other part for players. Like, everything feels like the worst thing in the world until you're in it. Like, as an old person in the league, when the Thursday night football games were coming around, I was like, this is crazy. This is terrible. But then over time, the young guys didn't care because it's just life to them.
Yeah, but does your body physically feel different getting up for a Thursday game? I would just always assume like maybe they're a little bit more sore. How do they get up and muster the same kind of effort?
No, not when you're young, man. The old guys feel it. The young guys, I mean, when I was 23, 24, I didn't even warm up, bro. I just walked out to practice.
That's my kind of guy.
And I'm like, you're putting on Ben Gay before practice? How old are you, dude? And then by the time I was 30, I'm
Tiger
hot tub,
bomb.
cold tub.
You're
Tiger
bathing in
bomb,
Ben Gay.
Massage.
Heat pack.
Ice pack. 17 Advil.
Thinking about quitting.
Meditation moments.
Insoles in the shoes.
Toradol. Green tea.
Greenies.
This is no bullshit. I would leave our position meeting. My receiver coach let me out of my position meeting 20 minutes earlier just so I could go through my routine to be ready for practice. That's how old I got.
Let's not forget a week ago, though, there was 65 points scored, right, on Thursday night between the Packers and the
Packers
Lions.
and
Let's not forget, a week ago they had 7 days rest.
Sure, okay, understood.
Right.
But still, like, there's been good Thursday games. The issue, too, this week was the tsunami and the rainstorm that came out of nowhere in the Bay Area. Nobody was expecting that. And then all of a sudden, like, here it is before the game, torrential downpour.
That's what you should be boycotting.
It's San Francisco.
Right, it happens.
All of a sudden, it came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It's the worst weather city of all the baseball cities. They're playing
Seattle's
in Candlestick
worse.
Park. Well, there's a roof. But playing in Candlestick Park, I don't know if you ever did, but if you ever, it's the worst.
I say dome every NFL stadium. That nobody likes that take, but
Grass?
Get rid of the elements.
No,
I
Hawk.
do not want to play in rain. I do not want to play in snow.
Hawk, football was meant to be played outside. It was
Was
meant to
it,
be played in the
though?
elements. What are you
Football
talking
weather.
about?
Maybe
Yeah.
the old
Lambeau
Field,
football.
frozen tundra.
It's only
Maybe when the
this part of
Stugotzes
the
were running
season.
backs in the NFL.
The autumn wind is a
San
pirate.
Francisco's nice till like Thanksgiving-ish.
The fake Mark Twain quote about coldest winters being summers that he didn't actually say. No, you have to have some element of elements in this sport.
Man.
Can we get
Count
it
me
right?
out.
The worst winter I ever spent was the summer I spent in San Francisco.
Right, but it wasn't actually Mark Twain that
But
said
it wasn't the quote you said either.
I know, so I don't have to respect the quote if it's not a real quote. Dan, we have perfect fodder. A football player quit on his team, so it's wonderful as the season just
They're not talking about me, Dan.
flames out in embers. Hawk admitted that he had considered, but not seriously. I'm
Thought about it.
It was a
Yeah.
fantasy.
curious. Like,
Yeah.
what was a one point in your career where you were like, I don't know, Jim.
1 in 15 season. When you're like, it's the third quarter, you're down by 30.
Right.
You know, the defense is out there. They start to say, punt return on alert. And you're like, I got to go back out here and risk getting my head taken off, knowing there's no chance for us to win this game or probably any game for the remainder of this season.
But you went back out
But
there.
I went back out
every
there.
single time.
And I don't know if that was me being institutionalized, but I did fantasize about it.
Peanut Tillman said that he was playing in a game in Chicago, and this is Peanut Tillman, right?
Yeah.
Notorious tough guy, where the field was so much ice and stuff that when he went out there, he's like, I just don't want to do this. I want to quit. I want to stop playing football.
It's a Tuesday for people to feel that in their job, but you don't manifest it, especially when you're a professional athlete in the public view. You don't manifest it by walking off the field the way he did. That the image that we haven't shown.
He's hurt, David.
He wasn't limping. It wasn't Willis Reed.
He is hurt.
Like
his ego
feelings?
is hurt. Yes.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Stu.
There's no rehab for feelings in the NFL.
Very sad.
But Hawk, can he get a job again? Because this is the cardinal sin, right? The times I have seen players react the way George Kittle did. Barrett Robbins, when he didn't show up for a Super Bowl because he had a bipolar episode. And Vontae Davis, when he quit at halftime of a Bills game. It's the only time I've seen players react the way they react because it's the cardinal sin. Will another team put this player on a roster once he's cut, because this is the worst thing you can do in football, is choose not to play when your teammates need you?
I won't say it's impossible, Dan. I mean, if he still wants, I don't know. That's the point. Like, if I walk off a field, I have no intentions on ever walking back on it. Like, when Vontae Davis left, he wasn't coming back to a football field. He knew that, and he's like, you know what? This is the moment where I feel like my career is done.
The reason I asked the question is because this is a player who has, like all players in the NFL, worked so much of his life to get this point, to this point, and now we're learning his name associated with quitting. This is what he's getting. He is known now more for quitting than he is for playing.
And I think that is what's going to block him from playing on another team. I don't think he's going to want to come back from this. That's just
But
my
he's a
opinion.
good player that still has value.
He is.
I mean,
he was
he's
also
getting
the
paid over $10 million
2023
a
Walter
year.
Payton Man of the Year nominee. So it's like a good dude. He's just done.
He should just do a Costanza, show up at practice the next day, and pretend like nothing ever happened.
I'm not letting him.
Gaslight.
Don't you think other teams, even within that division, will understand, like, okay, he performed admirably in the starter's place. Starter comes back, starts not feeling completely right. They ask him to go in, and not a good moment, certainly quitting, but if you had just the additional context, people can understand, like, this was maybe just an emotional moment.
But that happens every single day. There's guys that play great, and then all of a sudden, hey, the starter's back in.
Yeah.
Your ass is on the bench. Guess what? I got to make sure that next time my number's called, I'm playing great so that I become a starter.
Yeah, but then the starter comes back, and he's not good enough to play anymore. Then the starter gets hurt, and then he wants him to go back in.
More
And he's like, no,
opportunity.
I ain't going back in. No.
Mid-game holdout, man. They should have
Right.
just negotiated a new contract. He'd have been in there by the fourth.
Does it surprise you
business.
that it's a veteran that's doing
It does.
this?
It does surprise me. That's why I'm like leaning more towards the is he trying to retire type of thing, or is it that I didn't warm up to go in here to play. If I go out there, I'm going to get exposed.
Fred Warner has been playing on a fractured ankle for 11 weeks. I don't even know how a human being does that. The rest of that team is falling apart after being one of the best teams in the league for 5 years, only because their guys keep getting carried off the field. Like, they're physically broken, and this guy does that. Like, I don't know that. I think he loses friendships over something like that in that locker room, given what trust means
For sure.
in your particular game.
Yeah. No, he definitely loses friendships if he had them. You'd be surprised how there's not, like, real friendships in the NFL. But regardless, you're absolutely right on all those things. I'm just trying to, like, put myself in the mind of Campbell of what could be going through your mind at 31, which is old in the NFL, linebacker who's been on the sideline the entirety of the game. Maybe you didn't warm up the way that you thought you would because you didn't think you were playing. And in this moment, it's like I can't go in there because I'm going to get exposed because I'm not ready to play. Now, that is something I can identify with. My rookie year with the Bengals in preseason, this is the second preseason game. Now, I'm a guy coming from Canada. I'm low on the roster. And I'm trying to do everything in my damn power to just stick around on the roster. It was late in maybe the first game that I played. I can't remember who it was against. Maybe the Jets, maybe the Lions. But Marvin Lewis walks up to me, and he's like, hey, go out there and, jump in on punt return. Or the special teams coordinator, Coach Simmons, and I'm like, no. And he, like, eyes went up, and he's like, wait a minute. I said, go punt return. And I was like, yeah, no, I didn't practice that. And he, like, gives me another opportunity to say, hey, Hawk, get your ass out there and return these punts. And I said, Coach, I didn't practice that. And I don't want to go out there and drop a punt. And then you cut me, and then all the rest of the 31 teams see that I can't catch punts, and I don't have a chance. Marvin Lewis comes over to try to convince me. And I said, look, if you give me a week, I will return punts next week. They were like, okay, interesting strategy.
You're crazy, man.
That week, I worked on punt returns all week. They put me in. I returned it for 41 yards in the first punt return. Made the practice squad. That's an honest-to-God true story.
Ballsy.
But I was not willing to go out there and just seal my fate when I wasn't confident in myself and abilities.
I can't believe you did that.
That is a true story.
I can't believe
Cojones, brother.
that you told coaches who were coming to you on the sidelines asking for a favor, I haven't practiced that.
It's not a favor. They're asking him to do something he's never done before.
I'm not prepared.
He's done it a bunch of times in his life before, just not for that team.
I sucked at catching punts.
It's hard.
The stakes are too big to go out here and just give it a shot because no one's going to have that context.
Imagining you as a punt returner.
It's the worst job in football.
It is. I didn't return a single punt or kick in my career, and I'm 5'7". I'm the first sub 5'10" receiver in NFL history who was truly just a wide receiver. I don't think you guys realize that. I was not a returner.
I can't believe they didn't waive you.
I know. But it was a bet I was willing to make.
Was that naivete? Like you're just entering the league?
Absolutely
if
not.
veteran Hawk was around, would he advise young Hawk differently?
That might have been the wisest I've ever been in my life.
It's unbelievably smart. I just can't believe your coaches accepted it without consequences.
So here's what happened previously to even me getting to Cincinnati. Lockout happened, and I had signed with the Rams. And I got cut on day one, and I had a great practice. The one thing that happened in practice one is I dropped the punt. So if I'm the Rams, and you might be thinking, oh, he's 5'7", and he dropped 2 punts, and I'm like, well, maybe that's why they cut me. Won't make that mistake again. Get to Cincinnati. Not in a game, brother. Go out there and return. Absolutely not. And it was a thing. Like Marvin Lewis, the special teams coordinator, the receiver coach, they're like trying to convince me, like, hey, you don't know how bad of a light this is putting you in. But I had to bet on myself in that moment.
You're not even betting on yourself. You're just betting that you're going to return a fun. You're betting on the fact that you're going to fumble. Like that's what you're betting against yourself.
Could have scored a touchdown. I mean,
the other team could have scored a touchdown.
That's true.
Too.
It's outrageous.
I want to hear more about your fake NFL friends.
Some of the ticket prices for these college football playoff games are insane, but it's the first time we've ever seen games with this kind of stakes attached in home on-campus venues, really in-demand tickets, and I'm sure a lot of you are frustrated because you're wondering, how can I get these in-demand tickets? Jess, I know you're headed up to South Bend for a playoff game against Indiana. Why don't you download the Game Time app? I'm sure you already have, but if you haven't, create an account, use code DAN, that is DAN, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. You get panoramic seat views, Game Time's incredible ticket coverage, really the best in the secondary ticket marketplace. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Well, it's game time.
Game time, yeah.
It's game time. It's game time.
Jessica, what is your level of enthusiasm for Saturday and bowl season?
You mean this Saturday?
That's right.
I thought
this
you meant the
Saturday.
Notre Dame game, which is next Friday. I won tickets in the lottery, so yeah, don't have to go on the secondary market. Very exciting, face value.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Are you afraid of
It's a big
losing to
deal.
Indiana?
Well said. Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a great game. I'm really excited. It's like two teams that never play each other, where every single person who's a fan of either team is either a fan of the other team also or knows someone who is. Like, it's a very two kind of close-knit fan communities, I think. So I'm excited. My best friend went to Indiana. A lot of my friends went to Indiana. It's great. I think it's going to be super cool. But yeah, this Saturday, bowl season starts. There is a bowl game this Saturday. Hawk, I know you played in a couple bowl games while you were at Toledo.
Yeah, big time bowl games.
Detroit, one of the Motor City Bowl, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you played in the GMAC Bowl,
Bowl,
which is in Alabama.
Mobile, Alabama, to be specific.
What? So Toledo is actually playing in the Detroit bowl
Detroit
game
bowl
again
game,
against
yeah.
Pitt this year.
Yeah,
very,
we play in that one a lot.
Very exciting
You have
stuff.
Pittsburgh ties, right?
Yes, Pitt. Yeah,
Okay.
and I know you're from Johnstown Flood. We've been over David
We've been-
McCullough's wonderful
Yes,
book on the
yep,
flood.
Absolutely. It needs to be a movie.
It
Be a
does need to
Meadowlark
be a movie. Who would
I
you
feel like-
cast in the movie of the Johnstown Flood?
I've been thinking about this a lot, actually. Leonardo DiCaprio, I think, would be great.
As Andrew Carnegie?
I don't know about Carnegie. I think
original.
like, Tom Hanks also.
Great.
I don't know if you've heard of these actors.
They're usually up for the same roles. Those
Yeah,
two.
and it'd be great to get them both in there.
I think
separate. There's a
DiCaprio
lot of
could-
white guys. In
Well,
Johnstown,
yeah,
so
like-
it was
De Niro and everything.
plenty to go around.
DiCaprio could be a good, like, evil Andrew Carnegie. Like,
Yeah.
oh, we're going to build our fancy retreat in this
Everyone
place
is like
where
so
it's gonna
lost right now,
screw over the
Jessica. Me and
town.
you know what happened.
Exactly.
The rest of the world needs to understand that this was the biggest natural disaster on American soil until Hurricane Katrina in my hometown, okay?
Also, Altoona's been in the news a lot lately.
Ah, yeah.
We discussed
We did.
Altoona and the curve on the show prior to the most
Look at this.
recent news
Now I
events.
feel at home, Jessica. Thank you, Dan.
You're welcome.
You should be more like Jessica. She knows how to welcome me in
People
here.
say that about him all the time.
I would imagine.
What is it like as a football player at Toledo to play in the postseason
Yeah.
and play in these bowl games? Because I personally love bowl season.
Yeah.
I've been
Everyone does.
saddened
You played
by
when it mattered.
Yeah.
When
I've been-
bowls mattered.
Yeah, exactly. I've
bowls
been
matter.
slightly saddened that like the sort of 7-5 team to 8-14 bowl games have been not devalued, because they're not devalued to me, but it
Yeah.
seems like there's less enthusiasm from a lot of people now that we have the 12-team playoff. So as a player, I guess, what's your perspective on bowl season in general?
Yeah, that's a great question. And you know what I love about this show is I can be honest. I'm not honest anywhere else as much as I am here. I hated bowl games. It sucked.
You got swag bags.
Yeah, I mean,
what was the swag bag like for the GMAC Bowl?
I think for the GMAC Bowl, we got this is an old time. It was like a portable DVD player.
Nice.
We got a camcorder for. Actually, no, we got a portable DVD player and a camcorder for the Motor City Bowl, which was my freshman year. We went against Dan Orlovsky, torched us. In year 2, we went against Jordan Palmer in the UTEP Miners, I believe is their mascot, and they gave us like a designer hammer. And I'm like, okay, I'm good on bowl season. They elongated our season. You practice for a month and a half after your season is done.
A hammer? They gave you.
They gave us a hammer,
What's a
man.
designer hammer? I've never heard that.
It was like a specially designed hammer.
Like a Louis Vuitton wrapped hammer?
I don't know what the hell it was, but I didn't play in another bowl game for the rest of my career, and I didn't lose a night of sleep.
So if your team was like 5-6 going into the last week of the season, would you like maybe, not try that hard?
I mean, I wouldn't throw the game if that's what you're asking.
But like season's over if you lose. You
Also,
go 5-7.
I don't know if you've been to Toledo, Ohio.
Oh my God, are you kidding? I have
November.
family in Toledo, Ohio. I've been there a million times.
Miserable.
Perrysburg.
And we didn't have an indoor facility. This is the MAC conference
There's a
we're
great
talking
science
about.
museum there, though.
I've never been to the science museum.
No.
We're just practicing in the snow for an extra month and a half, only to go get whooped by whatever 6-round quarterback.
To get hammered and to get hammered.
Both. Yes. It was miserable.
So making a bowl meant an additional month out in the elements.
Damn it.
It's like, 15 extra practices that you get for bowl season? So would your perspective have been different if you made like the Bahamas Bowl or the Hawaii Bowl?
Absolutely.
Okay. So the problem here is the cold
destination,
weather bowls.
absolutely.
Okay.
For sure.
That makes a lot of sense. That's
Yes.
what I
Count
would
me in
expect.
on the Bahamas Bowl.
What are you shaking your head about, Samson?
All I'm hearing from Hawkins, and I'm happy to working with him today, but all I'm hearing are things that I have such contempt for that I'm having a hard time because I'm trying. I'm trying to like you. You have a Yankee hat on. You're talking about walking out. You're talking about not telling a coach that you won't go in to catch a punt.
Yeah.
And now you're saying that you don't want to practice the extra for a bowl game.
I thought it was business first with you, David. I thought that was...
The business is telling your coach that you're going to go in. That's like saying, I'm not good at bunting. Don't
that's
put the
your
bunt
business,
sign
man.
on.
No, that's your
What
business. My
Are you in the
business-
business of not getting a career?
I'm in the business of not losing my career. So I got to go.
You were
I
on
got to
the
raise the
practice
floor.
squad.
I wasn't yet.
Well,
I
so what
wasn't.
career did
I can
you have?
promise you, had I went in there and dropped a punt, I would not be sitting at I can guarantee you, David, had I got in there and dropped a punt against the Carolina Panthers in my second preseason game of my rookie year, you guys would have no idea who I am.
You guys don't understand, though, what an amazing decision that was that he had to make when he's doing the calculations on if I drop a punt, I'm going to get waived. Am I going to get waived if I tell my coaches I'm not going to do this? There is calculations happening on your career on the sideline
And
right there.
He provided crucial insight in that he muffed a punt and got cut immediately, so he knows the cause and effect with his time at the Rams.
I might make a mistake, Mike. I'll never make a mistake twice.
You know, it's funny. Like, you detail all these things that kind of sound miserable.
Yeah.
Practicing
Horrible
outside at Toledo, CFL, winning one professional football
I didn't
game
say
in
the CFL was miserable, but
two
okay,
full
shut up.
seasons.
Toledo.
What happened? So you go through all of that, and then you go to Foxborough, and you link up with the Patriots. You have the greatest quarterback of all time and the greatest head coach of all time, and that's when you decide, that's enough.
I think this is it.
It's too good now.
Yeah.
I need
I'm
misery.
And actually, my first practice in New England, it snowed. It was May 28th. So there is that.
You tell Belichick you're not returning a punt. You
That's-
think it's going the same way that
it's
it
not.
went with Marvin
Hell
Lewis?
no. Absolutely not. That's not how that works.
I wanted to ask you about something I've been talking about for a couple of days, funny enough. So Odell Beckham and the Dolphins agreed to mutually part ways. And one of the things that I was saying this week is, how does Odell Beckham, given where he's been in sports and fame and stardom, feel about playing a Dolphin game and seeing a stat line that has 1 catch for 1 yard? I was arguing that a receiver might rather have 0 catches for 0 yards because then people can assume he didn't play. Whereas
Like the Chris Bosh rule. Chris Bosh had like 1 point in an NBA Finals game.
0.
I'm like,
scoreless in a game 7.
There was a basketball player that had 1 point in a playoff game, and I was like, I'd rather have 0.
0?
Yeah, I'd rather have 0 than just
one
one
catch
singular
for 1
point.
yard.
Yeah.
1 catch for 1
You
yard.
don't want zeros. 1 catch for 1 yard is just as bad as all zeros, but all zeros shows that you played and didn't get a catch.
I think 1 catch for 1 yard is worse than 0 for 0 yards. But what if I make it 1 catch for -1 yard? Then do you prefer that to 0 for 0 yards?
I think I've had games with negative receiving yards. Can we check the stats on those?
Well, I'm checking the stats on the 2005 GMAC Bowl and the 2004 Motor City Bowl.
What does it say?
You're not on either box score. So I
Exactly.
think in this case, you'd rather have 1 catch for 1 yard because
Do
then
you
I
know
could be
why
like,
I'm not
hey,
in
you got
any
in
box
the
score,
game.
Jessica?
Because you wouldn't return a
Because you were a
punt.
freshman.
Because I broke my back the game before, and I did not play in the bowl game.
Oh, well,
That's 1 year. What
at
about
least
the
you
second?
beat the Miners.
The first year, it's 0 catches, 0 yards. Because I did play in that game.
Can you guys get for me the last time I heard I broke my back said quite that way when Mike Tyson was in a ring being interviewed by Jim Gray?
The problem, Hawk, is that your defense gave up 17 points in the first quarter to Orlovsky.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a tough place to come back
game.
from. Better second quarter for the Rockets, but when you're down 17-0.
What can you actually do?
Right.
We lost our number one receiver in Lance Moore. Bruce got hurt. Bruce Gradkowski.
You were loaded
legend.
with NFL talent on the off. Jalen Parmalee.
Parmalee? I was in the slot.
Why were we arguing about MAC teams on this show a couple years ago? It might have been when Notre Dame almost lost to Toledo in 2021. I was like, hey, Toledo's got some dudes. Like they put dudes in the NFL.
We got dudes. I would argue we are a top 50 program in the last 40 years.
Put it on the poll, please. Is Toledo a top 50 program in the last 40 years?
laugh.
And play the Mike Tyson sound, please.
Mike, were you really sick this week? What was the problem?
I broke my back.
What do you mean by that?
My back is broken.
What, a vertebrae or what portion?
Spinal.
Yes, I understand Mike Tyson.
I wanted to ask David Sampson something here based on what it is that the Jets are doing with their GM search, where they're going to a firm that employs Rick Spielman and Mike Tannenbaum, two failed Dolphin general managers, to get their new general manager.
And a failed Jets general manager on top of that.
Yeah, Tannenbaum is both, right? A failed Dolphin general manager. Actually, he was more successful with the Jets, but Spielman also a failed Dolphin general manager. What do you make of just the general incestuousness of continuing to go over and over to get your expertise from the same people?
Owners like comfort. It's like comfort food. They go back to people, and that's the talk of Belichick, going back to some of his old assistant coaches. It's a weird thing that owners have when there's openings. They want to bring people back. Think about George Steinbrenner with Billy Martin, old reference, but you bring them back again and again, and owners have always been like that. And everybody's smart. They're starting these consulting companies where you get paid to perform a job that anyone could do without being paid to do it. So when you're being paid to sell a team, if you want to sell a team, you raise your hand and say you're selling a team, and people come to you. When you've got an opening for GM, what they're saying is, we can identify kids in a way that you can't. But that's not how it works, actually.
They can't, right? They don't have – those two people proved to me over many years that they don't have a special ability to find talent. All right, we got some real tension in here because David Sampson is a germaphobe and Hawkins is coughing and wheezing. Yeah. And I just heard during the break the conversation, "Are you contagious?" And then Hawk says, "No, I'm not," which I don't know how possibly.
I didn't say no, I wasn't.
He
said, "How contagious are you?"
Okay.
And I said, I don't know.
Well, then he asked you, "Do you have diarrhea?" And then you said, "Let me check."
Let me check.
And I'm worried in general about what's happening between you two in
This is
here.
our first time, and it's been an entirely negative experience
Yeah.
based on the way you were as a player and a teammate, and the way you are now as my teammate and our teammate. You walked in dripping.
I thought you wanted me to play through injury.
Not now.
I'm
when
sacrificing
you're playing
for the
football.
squad.
I'm just suggesting you could have taken some medicine. You could have come in. I thought that maybe your voice default was this phlegmy, but then the drip gave it away. And before the show started, Dan, he said, "Excuse me, Dave," which means he just knows me from you calling me that. "Is there a cough button over on this seat?" And I said, "Yes, there is."
And you you helped me find the cough button, which is
Had
important
I known.
in entertainment.
Had I known that it was not just Stugotz phlegm, I would have.
I smoked 17 packs of cigarettes a day. You haven't asked me that yet. I am Stugotz Jr. That's what everyone calls me on the street.
Why did we go from coughing to diarrhea? Where was the link there?
I think David has diarrhea, and he was trying to
weird-
diagnose what he has
Yeah, it
to
was
blame
weird.
in me. And I'm like, yeah, I don't have that, bro. That's
I was telling you that what I'm suffering from is not contagious. So I'm going to be just fine.
Gosh.
You have diarrhea right now?
I've not this second. I've been sick. I've been plain hurt. It's what you do.
You have a tummy ache?
I've had
What
a tummy ache
happened?
since 2 days ago, and it started.
The candy. It was the candy.
No, it was not the candy. It was a bad taco, I believe, but not relevant. It may have been food from the kitchen here. Not relevant. What's relevant is I'm here and I'm not contagious.
And you're playing through it. You're not quitting. I do want to get back to a portion of this Devondre Campbell story because I'm trying to find the times or places that I have seen anything that compares like this to somebody in the middle of a game having an exchange with a coach where the coach is saying, "Get in there," and he's saying no. And then afterwards, Shanahan is telling you, "I didn't even ask a follow-up question. Once the answer was no, I just moved to next man up. I didn't even ask. I assume in that moment that it's sort of like they feel, football players feel like they're always in a firefight, and so there's just not time to ask questions. There's always I won't call a timeout. You're not worth your well-being or whatever's going on with you. My worry about your feelings is not even worth one of my timeouts. I don't have the time to get your explanation for why it is you're doing what I think to Kyle Shanahan is probably a pretty unprecedented thing. I don't want to play, and then I'm walking to the locker room, and I'm not telling you whether I'm hurt. Like, what is going to be the explanation for this? I'm done playing football. When he speaks, what are you going to – is there anything he can say that you hear that changes what's presently happening on my televisions, which everyone in sports television is aghast because they're just calling this dude a quitter. And they don't understand what they're watching. And is there any context or number of facts that I can give you? Because you guys played the clip earlier of a player who was calling it some sucker shit or some punk shit, and he lost a baby and was playing a couple of weeks later.
That's the thing that could happen. My family had an accident. There's no time for the explanation. I got to leave. I'm leaving the game. We had players who had a death in the family. A parent died during the game, and we didn't tell the player till after the game.
Yeah, there's no way on an NFL sideline for you to get that information. So there's nothing that could have changed at quarter one, play one, to when they got to that moment. And my question, Dan, is, was he kicked off of the sideline because he refused to play, or did he voluntarily say, "Hey, I'm not going in," and just left the sideline? If the latter is the case, then he probably is done in his NFL career. Because to walk off a sideline, it's one thing not to go in, which is terrible in and of itself, but maybe there is some explanation of why I cannot go perform. If you leave the sideline, That is quite literally you walking away from
The
your
last
NFL
time
career.
it happened was Antonio Brown, right?
Yeah.
That's the last time we saw it, and then he never played another down, right? We never saw him again in the league. When you walk off a football field, look, Hawk is here so he can explain it to you, but I have not had friendships or bonds or workplace relationships that would respond this badly to a broken trust, to the idea. Yep. I've never worked in a place where the ethos of it is so much. I'm going to do everything I can to get out there, and the person next to me is linked by brotherhood in the understanding that he's going to do everything he can to get out there too. So, like, I just cannot explain to you what a fracture this is in this sport because of the codes of whatever it is honor is in this sport, which is why I was shocked to hear you say that you weren't going to get out there and try, even if it meant your career was going to end with a fumble.
Yeah, no, that wasn't something I was willing to negotiate, which is a different situation than this. And maybe it's not. Maybe that's my own bias thinking that the situations are different. But I don't know these people. And what's most important at that point in my life is making sure I have a paycheck because I have a baby on the way. And I can't risk going out there and putting something on film that will ruin the opportunity for what is the closest thing to financial freedom for me. Right? In this situation, I don't believe that is the case. Because even if he was, for whatever reason, wanted to go about it to where he did not truly want to play and it wasn't just a hissy fit because he was upset that their all-everything linebacker had come back from an Achilles tear and they chose him over him. He maybe thought he would put enough on tape to make it seem like that was his position or they would have to earn it back because he's been the guy they've depended on. That's what that feels like. Because even if in the other scenario, you go out there and play and you grab your hamstring or you grab your neck or you fake it and be like, hey, I did one play, I can't play. That's not what happened. This seemed like he was trying to retaliate for a move he didn't agree with. And when you needed me most, I'm going to try to get you back.
And the weird thing is he was a non-starter because of the defensive formation that they went out in, right? Like they started with 5 down instead of a regular 3 linebacker set, which he probably would have been a part of. But then all of a sudden they go with that. He gets upset. And then I guess that's what ticked him off?
I'm going to move off this subject in a second, but I'm just genuinely puzzled by the idea of I've heard athletes so often say, like, don't get in your feelings about the stuff on the field. Like that, if this is an act of petty rage because your feelings are hurt, like, the consequences of that rage are so damaging if he's that much up in his feelings, and I just don't associate that with people who have climbed this particular ladder in this sport.
Yeah, and I don't think you're wrong, especially when you're getting paid that much. Like, that's all about the
It's
business.
happening more often, though. It just happened with the Ravens a couple weeks ago, and he's not going to get to play. Johnson's not going to get to play. He was suspended for 1 game.
That was an interesting situation because he was also new to that team.
He had just
recently
been traded.
acquired.
Trade deadline acquisition. He was like, I don't feel like playing. I can't even imagine that level of player cockiness.
Is it cockiness? Is it indifference? Is it flippant? Like, I'd really like to hear from this person. Like, I'd like to hear
Isn't
from
he a
Campbell.
former Toledo Rocket as well?
I
Deontay
can't
Johnson?
exactly remember, Mike. My brain is fuzzy. I've taken a lot of hits. Good
He has
question.
diarrhea.
I have diarrhea. I've taken so many meds this morning because David keeps slipping them in my coffee.
Can I ask you guys, based on the reaction that has happened around Bill Belichick, which was also a bit confusing to me because of the polar extremes that people were arguing with such conviction on what is the greatest coach ever, if Bill Belichick is not met by North Carolina with universal applause as a hiring, who would be? Is there such a thing as somebody who's just like if Nick Saban would be, right? If Nick Saban
got the age thing with him too.
But if Nick Saban came back, it would largely be consensus applause, right?
You don't have the unknown of can he get it done in this sport.
Is there a second? Is there somebody?
Kirby.
Yeah, Kirby. Like people that have had recent success.
More than Belichick. So
Sark.
These are people
Kyle Shanahan, if he were to come to the college game, I think it would be.
That's a good one. I like that one.
McVay, too.
Pat Riley in his prime going out of the front office. Back
I wouldn't
to
want
coaching.
him to coach football.
North Carolina football.
We're only
Pat
talking
Riley?
football?
That's a tough one.
Yes, that's what we're
David.
talking about.
Okay. I'm
Although
talking
maybe
about
he'd be
any
good
coach.
at it.
You said any coach, Dan.
Well,
Don't leave me hanging.
I'm saying North Carolina football. I'm saying that the reaction to Belichick, because I can sit here and say honestly as we talk about this, well, I don't know what's going to happen. But if I had to bet, I'm going to bet on expertise and some things that he has shown and proven to be good at. But I don't actually know, and I'm interested by the extremes. But if this person is not a perfect candidate with his credentials, then I was asking you who is, and it's hard for me to get my head around. Wait, so you guys think Sark? A guy who was drinking, he had alcohol on his breath and was let go at USC. You guys think Sark is somebody who would be met with more universal applause, or even Shanahan?
I don't know what you're doing with the alcohol thing there.
What do you mean? Like, he was let go because he was drinking on the job. Like, what I'm saying is that can be hard to trust, even if I can have all the compassion
He wasn't
for
met
it
with
being an
universal
illness.
fanfare, though. Sark wasn't met with universal fanfare, too. Yeah, I'm curious. I find the reaction to it puzzling because you can have your questions about it, but when you apply the context of this is North Carolina, it's a basketball school. Football is an afterthought. They have trouble engaging their biggest boosters. They don't make it to Charlotte routinely. This is a home run hire. And yeah, okay, there's a succession plan. And yeah, okay, there's this weird buyout that goes from $10 million to $1 million on June 1st. How does that line up with the NFL calendar? Also, I would say it's just $10 million. That's not going to stop an NFL owner from hiring him in this cycle. And I'm sure he probably has a plan for that, too. And it's probably involving his son.
I don't know what you're upset about. He said at the press conference, I'm not leaving. He was asked straight up, are you using this as a stepping stone to get back to the NFL? Nope. I'm not
Nick
leaving.
Saban's last words here were, I'm not going to be the Alabama coach. That's the last thing he said. Your idea the other day, I was leaving with you and we were talking about leadership, and you didn't say leadership was overrated, but when I said I'm not a good leader, I don't know how to lead, you said nobody does. Bill Belichick is famously known as a leader. Do you not believe that he has an assortment of skills that should be met with the North Carolina audience and basically everybody who's watched him work for 25 years? Legitimately applauding the idea that a program that isn't one of the major programs just got the most major coach there is?
I don't think that being a leader guarantees your success, right? And there are certain mediums where that leadership, if there even are natural abilities, bode better than in other places. And I think that's what people are talking about with UNC. Like, when you look at the New England Patriots, how he built that program, what that program stood for, it is in stark contrast to the state of college football today, right? Like, yeah, he's going to get guys to give him the most. We understand he knows the X's and O's of football. We understand he knows how to find diamonds in the rough to get better output than maybe what is on the surface of a player and their ability. But also, what he wasn't dealing with was essentially a roster full of one-year contracts. And that is how they built the program at New England. Yes, winning is all that matters. And when you get your opportunity, your time will come. But we're going to get over-the-hill football players. We're going to get undrafted guys. We're going to get more out of them than any other program can, and we're going to take advantage of that for the lifetime of their contract. What happens when a guy comes in, he balls out, and then they all want to go into the portal because now they have a higher appetite to make more money with other programs that you have to match. And that dollar amount just continues to go up.
Would there have been this many questions about this 6 years ago? And I'm not talking about where Belichick was 6 years ago. I'm talking about where the sport was, college football was 6 years ago. Nobody would be asking any questions. If Belichick were going back before NIL and before player freedom, everybody would be applauding here, correct? And wouldn't be saying, I don't know how well he's going to recruit.
I totally disagree. We've been arguing about this for, like, as long as I've been alive. There's been, can college coaches coach in the NFL? Can NFL coaches coach in college? Like, there's outliers for a reason. Like, the way you talk about Pete Carroll is because, like, he's one of the few guys that's been able to do it in both, right? And I guess my question for you, Dan, is, like, if you think Bill will be successful at UNC, what are you defining that as? Is that, like, he makes the playoff, he wins the conference, he wins a playoff game, he wins a national championship? Because those are all, like, super...
You don't have to guess because it's in his contract. So you can guess if you so desire.
No, he's getting like $1 million for winning a playoff game.
It's defined in his contract.
Success is right now, this minute, it's already successful because you're buying what he brings in terms of prestige. No one has ever talked about North Carolina football this way. So that's a measure of success. We've seen what Deion has done with that particular success for 2 years of just program building on that. And then after that, does he compete for the top of the conference? But I wonder
Dan, in North Carolina's defense, we usually do talk about North Carolina football for approximately 3 days, and then they lose to Virginia.
After they beat a top 10 team, though.
Yeah, once they get into the top 10, then they play Virginia, then they lose, and we stop talking about it.
Jamal Hill is with us now, so perhaps she can add some light to this subject that we're talking about. I will remind you that she's got 2 new shows. We've got Spolitics is the podcast, and Above the Fold is the TV show on True TV. Thank you, Jamal, for joining us. What can you tell us about what you've found most interesting about everything swirling around Bill Belichick?
Well, it struck me that so many people, especially in the media, have such unwavering confidence that this is going to work. And I'm not saying that it's without merit. I understand it from a purely football perspective. I understand this. Bill Belichick is arguably the greatest NFL coach in the modern day. And his accomplishments speak for themselves. But I just think that, maybe I've been exposed to, too many young people and especially talking to other coaches about what it's like in today's day to deal with modern young athletes. And I just wonder how this is gonna turn out. Certainly a lot of athletes want to be professionals. They want to make it to the NFL. And I easily see many scenarios in which Bill Belichick is able, as he was good at in the NFL, able to turn someone who maybe has some borderline potential into a real viable prospect. But at the same time, it's just such a different landscape. If coaches that are around his age are getting out and he's jumping in, that to me says a lot. And his last few years in New England weren't good. And so I just wonder if this is going to be a fit from a personality standpoint and just looking at how differently college athletics are compared to maybe 10 or 15 or 20 years ago, where if you'd have said Bill Belichick was going back to college, I would have said this is no brainer, a slam dunk. He's going to win there. In this climate, I'm not so sure.
David, are you sitting that way because your stomach is gurgling?
I'm good.
Okay, but it seems like you're protecting your stomach from whatever it is that ails you. It seems like you're in a position of a bit of discomfort, it looks like.
I appreciate that. It makes for a very good workplace that you're that concerned about how I'm sitting when we're talking about an important subject.
Okay. It's distracting.
It's distracting how I'm sitting?
Yes. Well, you look like you're in pain. You look like you're in physical pain. Time magazine named Caitlin Clark its Athlete of the Year, and in the article, and I'm curious what else you found interesting about the article, because she also said that women college coaching is pretty terrible. I want to say I've earned every single thing, but as a white person, there is privilege. A lot of those players in the league that have been really good have been black players. This league has been kind of built on them. The more we can elevate black women, that's going to be a beautiful thing. Not surprisingly, Megyn Kelly then responds on Twitter. She's on the knee, all but apologizing for being white and getting attention. The self-flagellation, condescending, fake, transparent, sad. Not surprising that she's on the cover of Time as the Athlete of the Year and always weaponized and polarizing in this day and age, even though she is just incredibly benign. Like, she has not done much of anything to actually stir real controversy.
No, and I guess the only way she would have made Megyn Kelly matter is if she came out in support of Black Santas, because we know that Megyn Kelly only believes Santa Claus can be white. I mean, that's the person whose opinion is chiming in on this. So it's not surprising she would have a problem with Caitlin Clark actually acknowledging the contributions, the sweat equity that Black women have put into this game. And you can tell a lot. Well, let me just big picture this real quick, though, Dan, is that as Caitlin Clark's popularity was rising, and particularly after it exploded when her and Angel Reese met in that national championship game, she did the infamous Angel Reese to John Cena motion And we saw a certain section of people galvanizing around Caitlin Clark. We saw it then, and it only continued to grow. And there was a nice amount of disingenuous people who were not basketball fans, certainly not they were not women's basketball fans, to be clear. They were not fans of women's basketball. But Caitlin Clark became their avatar. She became their vessel to express a lot of the hateful and racist opinions that they had about Black women, about queer women, and about the WNBA overall, to some degree about all women. So she became their sort of bat signal for that. And now that we're learning more about Caitlin Clark, and this, by the way, this was not the first time she said this. It may be the first time she really said it at length, because she didn't do that many one-on-ones this year in 2024. But she certainly she's been asked questions sort of along these same lines before. And while she didn't specifically mention white privilege, she has certainly always had a level of respect and reverence for the pioneers that came before her. I mean, one of the viral moments involving Caitlin Clark was when she finally met Maya Moore. Maya Moore is her favorite player ever. And that, by the way, shows the growth of the WNBA. A lot of the players that when the WNBA first started, they had no professional model to look at in America to say, oh, I grew up watching this, professional women's player, because that possibility didn't exist. Caitlin Clark represents the generation that actually grew up watching the WNBA, familiarizing herself with this league, understanding the legacy and the history of this league. And all she was doing is giving a nod to that. And she knows, like a lot of white players in the WNBA know, and they've said it, Kelsey Plum, Breanna Stewart, is that they get elevated, they get marketed, they get pushed in a way that Black women in that league who have accomplished similar things do not get the same endorsement opportunities, the same marketing. The marketing riddle of the WNBA prior to this moment has been, how do you market a league that is 70% Black, where a third of the players identify as queer? How do you do that? And that it has been a lot of marketing mistakes the WNBA has made in trying to sort of minimize that part of their identity. Or, a lot of people have certainly for years speculated that they push certain players because they're trying to kind of galvanize and interest white America with players they believe that they will get behind. So this has been a long-standing conversation in the WNBA. And Caitlin Clark, in her sense of leadership, I mean, she just stated the obvious. And now she has some very predictable people angry at her because they never were fans of hers. They just like the idea of weaponizing her success against other Black women who they can't stand.
It's time for your friendly neighborhood race lady.
I want to get Roy Bellamy and Andrew Hawkins to give me all the history they have with Black Santas in their home. Tony, did you have a Hispanic Santa?
Of course I did.
You had a Hispanic Santa. Roy, what was in your house? What is in your house in terms of Black Santa?
Not in the house, but it depends on what mall you go to if you want to find a Black Santa.
I wasn't a Santa Claus kid. My parents didn't teach me about Santa Claus. Probably
that's the other thing.
Because they were like, hey, we're not going to make it seem like some white guy is buying you these gifts when we're working double time and overshift.
Exactly.
So yeah, no white Santa, no Black Santa.
I asked the question wrong. Is Santa black?
Is Jesus black? I mean, it's basically the same question, right?
He's Jewish.
I mean, I don't know how.
The original Hebrews.
I think there's multiple Santas.
It's not the same question because Jesus was an actual person.
I think Santa's like
spoiler alert, kids.
I think it's from Germany originally.
I have a Black Santa and a Black Mrs. Claus in my house.
Yeah,
I think that doesn't surprise many people.
No, I'm shocked by that. Actually, that is crazy.
Breaking news.
That is wild.
Jamal has Black Santa.
I think Santa is like a
Mrs.
UPS, the UPS guy. It's like he's different for every community. I don't think Black Santa would get off in the white communities.
I have original recipe
without somebody calling the cops.
You have original recipe Santa?
Yeah.
No extra crispy.
You have.
Well, I got spicy Santa.
Love that
bad Santa.
I got Black Jesus in my house.
Did you celebrate?
My Santa thinks ketchup is spicy.
Christmas? Did you celebrate Christmas at all, or there was?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Absolutely celebrated Christmas.
So you're just saying that your
Christmas
parents...
in my household was Jesus, not Santa. So that's
reason for the season,
heavy
Dan.
on the Christmas. Not so much on the Santa Claus.
So Jesus would buy you the presents.
Jesus would provide the opportunity
He
for
always
the parents
does.
to, my kids,
Biggest present of all.
they see black Jesus. There's black Jesuses at my house. So they grew up, they went to stores. They were like, wait a minute, why is Jesus white in this store? It was like, they didn't even know that was a thing, So black Santa, black Jesus, yeah, you got a representation. Jamil gets it.
Yeah, the black Jesus photo hugging right next to Dr. King, right?
There it is, exactly.
And Robert F. Kennedy, right?
Yes,
That's
of
going to
course.
be the three.
The black
Johnson,
president, of course.
But so the babies in your homes, Roy and Andrew, they think, if I ask them, Santa and Jesus, they are both black?
Yeah, I'll say so.
probably,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
You're
yeah.
teaching
I'm
them.
so confused right now.
Not teaching so much as it's up to you, right? Like it's important for your kids to see themselves as the superheroes, because you'll see yourself. That's what Jesus represents. Is you see yourself in that. When you see Santa, you see yourself. Your kids see themselves in those things. So not so much teaching them that Santa is black, more as he could be black. Why not? Why can't Santa be black?
It's like a question, though, right? It's like a question.
Exactly.
Like, possibly black.
Like,
yes.
I'm sorry.
can do
Can you help me, please? I thought Santa was not real, but Jesus was. Did I miss that?
You better be careful. You're going down the line. Right?
Am I going down a rabbit hole of religion and color?
You got to be careful.
We bleep out curse words so we can be a family
you know what?
show.
That's it. I'm going to go
sorry.
then.
You know what? I'm going to go ahead and
Childlike innocence.
Major penalty, 5 minutes, screaming comedy.
Oh, major!
you got to get out of here.
Christmas.
I'm just trying to protect you from yourself. If you have to go to the bathroom,
I was going to say, maybe a bathroom break wouldn't be a bad idea.
You already said the thing.
I'm giving
Fix that
you
diarrhea.
5 minutes to just get out the verbal diarrhea, the other kinds of diarrhea. Get it all out of the room. I want to play something here for Jamel based on something we were talking about earlier this week with Juan Soto. Can you guys get me the sound of both Juan Soto thanking New York Yankee fans and also then famed Yankee fan Nick Turturro complaining with a great deal of rabid passion that I would imagine doesn't want Juan Soto's thank you for Yankee fans. Let's hear from Juan Soto here.
A message for the Yankee fans?
I want to say thank you. I'm actually just want to say thank you to them. They really showed me all the love and everything that they have last year. They were right there day in, day out. They really have a spot in my heart at the end of the day. Tough that we couldn't get it together and try to be back and stuff like that, but definitely I always gonna appreciate what they did for me in 2024.
Second language is tough. You got to think about what you want to say in Spanish and then translate it to English, and then you're kind of handcuffed with the words that you can say. A lot of love there, a lot of thank yous. It's tough.
He rehearsed that. Did you hear that side he made before he actually started talking? It was like,
Well, I did feel for him trying to answer the question why you chose the Mets in his second language, because he had to go to some of the things other than money. And yeah, it's like they're building an unbelievable thing here. He went to unbelievable a couple of times when the Mets haven't been unbelievable since 1986.
Yeah, we're trying.
The contract was unbelievable.
David picked a bad time to ruin Christmas.
I mean, but would it have been so bad if he said, "You see the money, right?" I mean, like, would that have been?
I would have.
I think all of us would be like, "Yes, you're right."
Or better would have just been dinero, papi. But he was trying to do it in his second language. But I'm sure Nick Turturro, famed Yankee fan, received his thank you with sincere gratitude, right?
Hey, Soto, I saw your press conference. You want to say thank you? Want to say thank you to the Yankee fans? No, thank you. No, thank you. Thank you would have been coming back to us. Fraud.
Okay, there it is. That's vastly,
no, thank you.
Vastly more reasonable than he was in recent days when he was swinging a bat and throwing a bat and yelling FUs all over the place. Can we get the Grim Reaper ready here and participate with the bucket of death and get Jamel involved also in the bucket of death? I'm going to pick for her.
Okay, all right.
I'm going to pick for Jamel so that she can play in our contest here.
Jamel, no opinions on the Niners season ending last night? Was this a window closing?
I think it is. But it's not a gotta blow it all up and completely like restart from scratch. Like, we're not the Cowboys, for crying out loud. You know what I'm saying? But I think it does signal that for this iteration of this team, this feels like the end. They got some major decisions to make. How much to pay Brock Purdy? Can't take advantage of getting him on the cheap. Decisions to make about Debo. I mean, about the defense. So I think there's going to be some serious retooling in the offseason. They can't afford to play Brock Purdy. What quarterbacks are worth that have accomplished what he's accomplished.
Not some minor tweaks that you're talking about here, Jamal. These are major pieces.
All of it depends on how much is Brock Purdy going to cost. That's really truly the $1 million question.
And you don't think he deserves the top dollar?
No, well, I think he deserves a competitive, really good quarterback salary. Does he deserve Dak Prescott money? Hell, it's questions about whether Dak Prescott deserves that kind of money.
Deserve Dak Prescott
but he's
money?
going to get Trevor Lawrence kind of money. That's $50 million a year, isn't he? Brock, you
Yeah,
got to pay Brock Purdy the way you pay Trevor Lawrence, right?
I will say this: if we can keep, it would be great if we could keep that price tag between. And I know this sounds ridiculous, but between 40 and 45. That'd be great if we could keep it.
That's Daniel Jones
that would be
money.
Great if
You're
we
talking
could
Daniel Jones money. Jamel?
I mean, it would be great if we could. I'm not saying he's clearly better than Daniel Jones. He's better than Trevor Lawrence. I get it, but like for the entire engine of this team to work, once we start talking in the 50s and certainly anywhere near 60 million, we in trouble. You can't pay him that.
If you give me 40 to 45 million and I'm Brock Purdy, I'm gonna turn into Devondre Campbell real quick on that sideline. All right, I'm gonna need that top dollar, or I ain't playing, David. Welcome back.
I want to ask her about Devondre Campbell in a second, but let's just roll through while she's talking. Let's roll through the bucket of death here.
The Browns putting it back.
Okay, the Browns, what are they? They are favorite. They are dog at home against the Chiefs. They're +4.
Ugh.
I actually don't hate it.
They're going to win
either.
Golden helmet of life.
They're going to win.
Well,
oh, nice. Congratulations. No one is happy
to,
for
the
you.
end of the regular season, too.
I haven't lost this year yet either.
Wow. That.
Dan, I feel like I'm joining a cult right now. I have no idea what's going on.
Yes, we're just. I'll explain it. I'll explain it to you off air. Congratulations on the golden helmet of life. You get 3 free weeks without punishment. What did you make as a 49er fan and as a journalist of Devondre Campbell just straight up quitting during the game last night?
I thought it was a weak move. First of all, he already knew the reason that he was in that position was because of, Dre Greenlaw being out. So he knew he was in a unique situation. So if this issue was about, him, the playing time, it's like that was your reality when you knew that was your reality from the start. But I think it's just, unfortunately, it's just a window into this season. The 49ers have had an incredible amount of luck to go along with their skill and obviously the winning, but you got to stay healthy in this league. You got to keep drama out the locker room. And this was not the year, unfortunately, for that. Everybody got hurt. There's now, even before this week, you had drama with Brandon Ayuk's contract situation, drama with Debo Samuel last week, complaining about not getting the ball enough. And unfortunately, he had the performance that he had against the Rams. So this was the season that all those things that can derail other teams came bubbling to life for them. But what was clear in hearing Kyle Shanahan and other players talk about it afterwards is that, he has lost, Campbell lost a lot of people's respect in that locker room. I mean, you have a lot of guys who have a lot of things on the line, and it's difficult to get these opportunities in the NFL for somebody to willingly tap out and to do that to your teammates in a nationally televised game. It's embarrassing. I'm embarrassed for him.
I got the Jets. I'm keeping it. They're playing the Jags.
Okay. What kind of favorite are they against the Jags?
Mac Jones. That's all you got to know, Dan. I've got the Wizard of Oz helmet, so I get to pick a lion, a tiger, or a bear.
Ooh.
I'll be back with that.
We should make a Wicked helmet. You have to pick a green or a pink team.
There's no pink teams.
Inter Miami.
Okay. I got the Chiefs. I'm keeping.
Okay, the Chiefs are at the Browns. I don't like that one either. I don't like the Chiefs. I don't trust the Chiefs to win a road game.
Jameis is just crazy enough to win that game.
He also will throw just enough pick sixes to make
That's
sure
true.
they don't.
Maybe.
That's true.
Bengals are at the Titans.
I
That's
think he's
probably
been
a tiger.
delivered by Black Jesus from those pick
He
sixes.
threw a couple bad picks last weekend, but they weren't pick sixes, so maybe you're right.
Well, he did ask Black Jesus to deliver him for pick sixes, so
That's what I'm saying.
there is that.
So David's got the Saints. The Saints are a 7.5-point dog at home, and they're starting a new quarterback.
Flynn.
You want to keep that?
Yes, the
Why?
Commanders are fading fast.
Jake Hayner and them boys.
Again,
Rams are
you're
gonna
going
catch
to
Name the Saints
You're
quarterback.
going to keep it.
Even though he was just named.
Don't I get the points?
No,
No,
you don't
straight
get
up.
the points. It's straight up. And
Oh no, you can't do that.
That's illegal.
what just happened?
You can't do that.
I don't even know the rules, and that seemed illegal.
Well, he's got to pick a replacement.
I was
on
like, I
that.
don't know him either. That seemed wrong.
Yeah.
All right, I got the swap helmet. So give me that golden helmet of light.
Oh, Dano. Now you got to pick one to swap with, Dan.
Well, actually, he kind of broke the order because David's son picked his second helmet.
Jaguars. So they're 3-point dogs.
First L coming there.
Wait, what's David's team?
David, what's your team?
He has
Fulfill
He's
my
got the
punishment
Saints. That's
next
it.
year.
He's
Stuck
got
with
the Saints.
Yeah.
I have the Saints.
Colts play.
Andrew Hawkins
Broncos.
has the Colts. They are at the Broncos. They're a 4.5-point
Broncos are a
dog.
tough team.
So I pick a new one.
So, so I'm sorry, Jamel. Yes, you get to pick another one, but this one's final. And Jamel, I'm going to select for you, and then you can select whether you want to keep it or not. And if you lose, you have to wear a costume of some sort or suffer a punishment. The Texans are playing against the Dolphins at home. The Texans are a 3-point favorite.
I'll take it. I like it.
Ooh, I'll keep that one.
No, I'm sorry. That's
that's
not
me.
yours. That's Andrew Hawkins. Yours is
you
the
don't
Falcons. Yours is the Falcons. The Falcons are
4-point
Monday
favorite.
night.
at the Raiders, and they're a 4-point favorite at the Raiders.
Kirk Cousins is playing.
Prime time.
I'm aware, but y'all will never make me hate Kirk Cousins because he went undefeated against Michigan when he played for Michigan State, my alma mater. I'm going to keep this. I believe. Come on, Falcons.
All right, there you go. And the Dolphins, by the way, in that Texans game, that's a show-me-something game. That's another show-me-something game for the Dolphins, beating the Texans on the road for your season after a bye. The Texans on a bye.
I happen to know the Saints are going to win.
That's a
Cousins
terrible
have a
pick
black
by
Santa?
you. It's a terrible pick by you. It's the second biggest dog on the entire board. Jamel, thank you. Appreciate the time, as always.
Okay. A part of me hopes I lose because I'd love to be in costume. That'd be pretty hilarious. I got some ideas already.
All right, great.
I know Kirk Cousins is going to pull it off. So thank you all. Good to see you.
I got the Bengals, by the way.